now there's a new U.S. I call it a U.S. NATO coalition because the vast majority of countries are.
You're right. It's a U.S. NATO coalition. Yeah, it is.
NATO stand countries. The Operation Prosperity Guardian, in response to Yemen and more specifically Ansar Allah's stand, they've taken a huge stand in the Red Sea. They've created a huge disruption through their blockade of major shipping through this economic hub. And so I'll pull up your article because I know you just wrote about this, but perhaps you can tell the audience exactly what's going on and why is this so significant? Because it feels like the United States is almost gearing up for another war, believe it or not, in response to this, despite the fact that for years we've been told, Ansar Allah, the Houthis, they're no big deal, they're no problem. So help us clarify what's going on here.
These are real badasses. The first thing that we should know about the Houthis and Ansar Allah, especially as organization, they are real badasses. Because for them, it's a question of purity. They are not in it for the money. They are not in it for influence. They are not in it to conquer territory. They are not in it to receive handouts from whoever that might be. Their relationship with Palestine is with the spirit of Palestine. It's not necessarily a direct relationship with Hamas or Islamic Jihad or any other Gaza organization, for instance. It's with the fate of the Palestinians as a whole, which the way they interpret it is a very noble cause. So they have to be allied to it. So their decision to basically attack, very, very important. This is not explained across the West. This is not a blockade of the Bab al-Mandeb or the Red Sea. This is a blockade of ships that are going to Israel or delivering whatever it is to Israel. It's a completely different. If you just imagine, compare what's been happening for the past day or two, where Russian oil tankers, they travel the Bab al-Mandeb Red Sea undisturbed. And the Yemenis already said that on the record. No, we won't do anything against Russian ships. Problem is these Western ships who are delivering whatever that is to Israel. And they're very, very specific. So obviously, from a Western point of view, this is Iran manipulating their Yemeni vassals against the Western answer. Bullshit. No, because the Yemenis, although they have a close relationship with IRGC, Al-Quds Force, they have their own organization and their own objectives, which is how they considered Yemen national security and Yemeni interests. So, and superimposed on all that, there is this, let's say, Quranic reading of the whole situations that they have to help a people in distress that is being genocided. And they, from the beginning, they were horrified by what happened. And from the beginning, they took a decision to do much more than other members of the axis of resistance. So the axis of resistance, just to remind all of you, I'm sure all of you know, but is Gaza factions, not necessarily only Hamas, would be Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Front of the Liberation of Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Gaza as a whole, Hezbollah for obvious reasons, the Syrian Arab Army, militias that act linked to Hezbollah or linked to Syria or linked to Iran in Syria, Hashd al-Shabi in Iraq, which is a conglomeration of people mobilization forces, and there are several of them. They interact. They are integrated in the Iraqi Ministry of Defense, very, very important. So they are semi-official or official. And they are blessed by Ayatollah Sistani in person, directly. This is extremely important. They consider that al-Shabi, they do the work of the Almighty, in fact, protecting minorities and especially trying to expel the invader, which is still there. Never forget that. So this is the axis of resistance. And of course, Ansarullah in Yemen. When you look at what's happening at the moment, apart from Hezbollah, which is basically containing the game on the border, because Hezbollah, and Nasrallah said that on the record in two of his outstanding speeches, 2 months ago, they are not going to get into this war because they know that Israel is trying to drag them into a war. But there is a red line. And if this red line is infringed, let's put it this way, Hezbollah will get into the war. We still don't know what would be the definitive red line. Probably an attack on lots of Lebanese civilians, for instance, by the Israelis. This could be a red line. But the Yemenis went one step ahead. Ansarullah went one step ahead, let's say, with one single move, which is absolutely brilliant strategically. And we have been discussing among ourselves for quite a while. Did they come up with this strategy all by themselves? Was it coordinated with Tehran? Or even better, was it coordinated with BRICS as well? I love the possible scenario that Russia and China in the background, let's say indirectly through their channels, which would be in this case Saudi Arabia and Iran, which are going to become BRICS members in little over a week, discussing with the Yemenis, says, look, if you do this, we got your back, essentially, because we know that the empire is going to go absolutely crazy and responding exactly the way all of us thought they would respond. Another coalition of the willing, and they are not willing at the moment, right, Danny? When we look at the list, as you said, it's basically some stupid NATO stun and superpower Seychelles. And you don't have the 3 BRICS members that would theoretically be very, very angry with the Yemenis about this blockade. We don't have Saudi Arabia, we don't have Iran, we don't have Egypt, especially because Egypt will be losing a lot of money on the Suez Canal. And of course, well, that brings us to, I would say, a further development into this fascinating scenario that this may be a concerted strategy with Iran, with Yemen in the forefront as a sort of vanguard, and the BRICS right behind. We got your back, betting on a crazy response by the empire, which they knew it would happen, and it is happening. But at the same time, a very risky strategy, because the corollary to what's happening would be a war of this armada directly against Yemen. And that would set a good deal of West Asia on fire. Setting West Asia on fire is what silos in the Beltway, and I don't have to tell you in detail who are they. This is what they want, because West Asia, where we have 3 very important new members of BRICS, where we have Russia having excellent relationships with every player in West Asia, where we have connectivity corridors linking directly with China, where we have China betting on West Asian corridors and use them to deliver merchandise to Europe, and where we have especially this agglomeration of multilateral interests, everything from BRICS to OPEC plus, further and further away from imperial domination. we all know that the standard imperial procedure in this case, which is always divide and rule, is to, okay, let's foment further chaos and let's start a new war. And that's where we are at the moment. Very, very dangerous moment. But coming back to this fascinating possibility that the BRICS may be behind what Yemen is doing. Of course, we will never have a smoking gun about that from anybody. I would consider this a fascinating, a juicy working hypothesis, right? But the fact that the Saudis and the Iranians both said, no, we're not going to get into your armada. The fact that basically they're not doing anything against Yemen. The fact that the Saudis themselves picked up the phone, called the White House and said, don't do this because we know that these guys are badasses. We have been bombing them to hell for 7 years. They're still there. And basically we lost our war, which they did, right? So, and from the point of Egypt is more complicated because Egypt, they don't have a lot of margin of maneuver. So Egypt probably was advised, let's put it this way, by the BRICS in the background. Look, don't do anything for the moment. Let's see how they react first. And then we must have a concerted strategy. Because from now on, and even before BRICS 10 starts in a little over a week from now, these major strategic decisions, they have to be agreed upon by the 10 BRICS. Because now they have the psychologically in their minds, they know that they are the new G7. And they know that the whole global south is looking at them for leadership. So they need concerted decisions. You cannot have one or two members going astray or no. It doesn't work like that. And obviously this connects us directly to the vortex, which is Russia-China. And it's not by accident that we have this week another one of those ultra high-level Russia-China meetings with Mishustin, Russian Prime Minister, meeting Xi Jinping in person in Beijing, discussing at the highest level everything, including, of course, West Asia as well. So this, then, it basically lays down a few possibilities of what's going on. It's an extremely complex variation of the great game, the way I see it, you know. And of course, we can always suspect that there's some shadow play that it's not too obvious at the moment. It may become obvious later on, right? But I would say that Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, and Iran especially are following this very, very closely. And they have their back channels to talk to Ansarallah. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I mean, just the developments out of this. I was playing some of those clips. We had, of course, you mentioned Russia being allowed to move their tankers through the Red Sea. Ansarallah giving them that permission. And then you also have China not, Israel is reporting there's distress calls. They've been trying to get Chinese warships to become involved to control the situation for them. Not even no answer. Similar to how Xi Jinping was not picking up Joe Biden's calls for a very long time, basically for the good part of a year. Now we have China not picking up Israel's calls. And the fact that, I mean, Saudi Arabia, that was huge, not joining Operation Prosperity Guardian, but also being the one to proactively cement that it was not going to.
It's not a good idea. Yes.
And then just looking at Operation Prosperity Guardian, Bahrain being the only country in the region, the only Arab country in the region.
It's the fifth fleet element.
And that's it.
The short answer to what you're saying, the fifth fleet element.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Pepe, what are the chances, do you believe, of, because this is obviously a U.S.-led coalition, what are the chances that the United States actually pushes for war here? Because it seems like a disaster. You also have Israel. There are reports over the last few days that Israel is trying to push the United States to help against Hezbollah as well.
Against Hezbollah,
Any
yeah.
they're saying any next ceasefire, humanitarian ceasefire, has to include, this is, in my opinion, ridiculous, Hezbollah essentially retreating completely, basically
50
ending
kilometers
their
all the way to
ability,
the Litani River. But it's a joke.
ending their ability essentially to do what they're doing, which is first not going to happen. But so I'm given that you have what's going on in Gaza, which is an onslaught, it's a massacre, it's a genocide, and then you have these two flashpoints in the same region that the United States appears to be having difficulty controlling. What is your estimation about the possibilities for war?
Considering what we hear literally every day from the crash test dummy administration, especially little Blinky, my God, I think they are scared to death. First of all, because they never thought strategically. Second, because the whole project Ukraine went down the drain big time. It's like one of those vortexes that goes to a black void. You know, it's unbelievable. The quote of Christmas this week, the way that I selected, was Blinky saying that Russia lost the war in Ukraine. He actually said that, you know. So these people are totally lost in oblivion. So considering that they are the, between commas, deciders of U.S. foreign policy, and backed up by those Straussian neocon psychos in the Beltway, anything can happen. In fact, all of us, they know the way they think. So all of us were saying, they're going to have another armada in. And that's exactly what happened. Everybody knew there would be a coalition of the whaling against Yemen. It's inevitable because there's never a plan B. Plan B would be what? Diplomacy. Okay, let's use Saudi Arabia. Let's use Iran. Let's sit down on the table. Let's and obviously let's force Israel for a real ceasefire in Gaza, which is something that they never even considered, right? So this is diplomacy. And this links directly to what the diplomats in Moscow told us. No, these people don't do diplomacy anymore for almost 2 years. And that's why it's impossible to sit with them on the same table. They just demonize you. They lost the art of diplomacy completely. And especially this American administration, which is in a class by itself. No? Losing a cosmic humiliation of NATO in front of them that they are not able to recognize, endorsing a genocide which everybody is falling on their smartphones all over the planet, any vote in the United Nations where the whole planet votes for a ceasefire and they say no. So we all know that diplomacy for them doesn't exist. And the case of the Red Sea drama could be easily solved in a 2-hour diplomatic round, easily. But of course, we know their priorities. We know the psychology of these people in the Beltway, the so-called deciders. We know their desperation with the upcoming elections, which they know they're going to lose. We know that they are trying to replace the guy who should be in a retirement home and that vice president, which, forget it, she's already being thrown under the bus. But who's going to be? Gavin Newsom is going to be their candidate. So no wonder they're desperate. And the fact that, of course, the fact that they're being expelled from Eurasia all over the place, literally all over the place, by Russia and China. The fact that Russia and China, the strategic partnership, is stronger by the day. It reminds me of that line in Apocalypse Now, Danny, in the beginning when Charlie Sheen, the VO, is saying, every day I stay in this room, Charlie gets stronger. And Charlie was getting stronger out there while he was getting drunk in the room. Absolutely. This is what's happening now. Charlie, Russia, and China are getting stronger every day. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're gonna go to war against both.
No, I mean, both go to war against both, and you also have these huge flashpoints now all across West Asia. It just seems to be piling up and piling up.
Piling up, yeah.
And what's astounding about it is this Operation Prosperity Guardian seems to be, if Saudi Arabia gets it. It's interesting that the rest of the so-called coalition of the willing that got their butts kicked by Ansar Allah over the last better part of a half decade, last 5 to 7 years, it's incredible to even just watch them do the same thing. I mean, what do they expect a different outcome if they do start a war? I mean, if they do start a war over this, it could, of course, I think, have ramifications globally. But even just from the standpoint of this organization, this movement that now is the leadership of Yemen, they have experience with defeating a very similar coalition. So
absolutely,
what is your take on this? Because I see a lot of hubris. I see a lot of hubris about this all across social media. They're doomed, right? You see the aircraft carriers coming in from the United States, and it's like, oh, they're doomed. Are they? I don't know. Like, are they really?
No, they're not, and that's why they are so confident. And it's fascinating because you see their defense ministry saying out loud, "Look, if you attack us, there will be retaliation, and it's going to be serious." And everybody knows what that means. So, one of the possible headlines in the next few days or weeks, it's something that I used from one of my readers. In fact, aircraft carrier sunk. So this will be the new 9/11,
right?
And we're gonna have this. We're gonna have a replay of 9/11 with post 9/11. Okay, they're gonna bomb Afghanistan. They're gonna bomb Yemen again. Yemen has been bombed for 7-8 years, and they didn't break. Nobody can break them. It's outstanding. You can't. No wonder the Roman Empire called it Arabia Felix, happy Arabian.
Right.
Happy in a okay, this was way before Islam, of course, but happy in a sense that they are at peace with themselves. They are very, very pure, essentially, and they know exactly what they don't want, and they won't be subjugated by anybody. So you can. If you thought that the Pashtuns were badasses, these guys, it's on another level.
I mean, it was a human. The thing is not a lot of people understand that Yemen still is in many ways, in terms of the conditions that are still absolutely deplorable and insufferable. But for a long time, what human rights organizations even were talking about Yemen, they were saying that Yemen was basically going through what Gaza is going through right now. The biggest humanitarian catastrophe on the planet was located in Yemen. It still is in many cases.
It is.
And yet they still fight in this way. You wrote in your article, actually, one of the best lines you said, "The king is naked. Yemen has done more in practice to defend the Palestinian cause than most of the key regional players put together." And I think
this is it's a statement of fact, Danny, isn't it? Well, you remember that famous Riyadh meeting, Arab League, Organization of Islamic Conference, and at the end they had this ridiculous statement, which was basically blah blah blah, and they didn't do anything in practice. So that's when I think that's when the Houthis, the Ansar Allah, said, "No, we got to do something. If we expect these people, 57 nations, they do nothing, we're going to do it by ourselves." And there's another component, I would say, part of the big picture of this whole thing, which is General Soleimani. Don't forget that the decade that we're living now started with the assassination. It was January 3, 2020, I'm sorry, when General Soleimani, and no wonder the Americans were terrified of him, because he's the guy who unified the axis of resistance as a whole, including Yemen. So the big picture is in his mind. And the big picture, the way he designed it, that's it. We have to work together. There's got to be a concerted offensive sooner or later. He was thinking in the next few years. So in the end, happened what, three and a half, almost less than 4 years after he was killed. And then we will be able to corner the empire and set a trap for them. I think this trap is being laid out now, little by little, in different parts of West Asia. So no wonder they don't even understand the extent and the sophistication of the trap, Danny. Essentially, that's it. That's
what
it.
Yemen is doing is working. What Ansar Allah is doing is working. You have just massive disruption. The economic situation, of course, we have millions and millions of dollars being lost. The price of oil is going to go way up. Here you have the impact and the map showing you.
This map is fabulous. This map is fabulous. That comparing Suez Canal with going through the Cape of Good Hope. It's fantastic, man.
Right.
It tells you the whole story. Yeah.
And you have this plus also the fact that these shipping companies, their insurance rates are going way up because of the war zone situation, calculating that, the risks of that. And then you also have European countries now articulating when they had been silent before and basically letting the United States, the UK famously abstaining from the one of the most recent UN Security Council votes on a humanitarian ceasefire, and the United States being the only one to veto. But now you have the UK and you have other European countries calling for ceasefire right after Yemen and Ansar Allah established their blockade. So it's working in many ways in terms of pressuring these governments to feel the pain of the consequences.
And do you see the, let's say, almost invisible call to the whole global south by the Yemenis? Basically, they're saying it just takes one shot. It just takes one strategic move. With one strategic move, they turn the whole thing upside down. It's absolutely fascinating. That's why I still think that this harks back to the lessons that they learned from Soleimani and the fact that they are having interlocutors at the highest level who are thinking strategically long term. This is extremely sophisticated. I'm not trying to take the merit out of Ansarullah and the Houthis to come up with that. Of course not. But there are some ghost channels behind that. Okay, let's lay down the trap. Okay, here's another move on the chessboard. And of course, for instance, when you compare with the way Hezbollah has been extremely measured, Hezbollah basically is millimetrically calculating how much are they going to stand from Israeli provocations. Because, of course, Nasrallah, more than anybody, he knows that if there is a war, civilian population in Lebanon will pay the price. And he doesn't want that on his conscience. These people are extremely, their rectitude is something, it doesn't exist in the West anymore. They really do care about the other. And they really do care about their extended family. And they see everybody as an extended family, And not only in their case, Shiites, Sunnis as well. An Islamic family, like a civilizational Islam, let's put it this way.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.